Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about Ohio Issue 1 to decide if the requirements to amend the Ohio State Constitution should be increased. Now this ties closely into a November abortion-related amendment, so we're going to talk about all that, but real quick, since we've gotten to 1,000 subscribers, it's time to try some new things, so there is a way to join the channel if you're interested down below. There's not really many perks at this point, because I really have no idea what the demand is, so it's pretty much just a way to show your support. There's a whole bunch of things we could do in the future, more live streams, maybe a Discord server, maybe better graphics, possibly extra videos, but it's going to be baby steps, but all the regular content should stay the same. So anyway, let's get back to this Ohio Issue 1. I've got Ballotpedia pulled up, and the top of this pretty much summarizes it, but real quick, right now, if the Ohio Constitution were to be amended through a citizen initiative, it requires just a simple majority, 50% plus 1 for approval, but prior to that, you have to gather signatures from half of the counties, so that's 44 out of the 88 counties. And then there's also a 10-day period for ballot curing where you could fix errors on the signatures. So that's what it is right now. Now on August 8th, if this passes, it will become harder to amend the state constitution. So what are the changes? Well, the threshold for approval will go from 50% plus 1 to 60%. And instead of gathering signatures from half of the counties, 44 of them, it would go up to all the counties, which is 88. And from each of those counties, you would need 5% of the total number of votes cast in the last governor's election. And the last thing this would do would eliminate that 10-day ballot curing period on the signatures. So that's the quick background, but this issue has become hotly contested. But I highly recommend taking a look at this Ballotpedia page. Of course, the link will be down below in the description. I'll scroll through here as we talk a little bit more about it. This tells you all the background you're going to need to know about this issue, and it talks about how this would affect an upcoming abortion amendment. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but down here we've got the exact wording and the ballot summary. A little bit farther down we've got the supporters, and as you can tell, Republicans and conservative organizations are supportive of this issue, while generally it's Democrats and liberal groups that are opposed. Now, you can read about some of the arguments in support of and opposed to this issue, but it is hard to not factor in that November abortion amendment. We'll pull that up in just a minute, but if that passes, that would establish a constitutional right to an abortion up through fetal viability. And of course, this issue here is relevant because that issue might not pass with 60% of the vote. It could hit 60, but it could pass with only 50 to 60%. Therefore, the state constitution would not be amended. So it's not a complete overlap, but generally more Republicans are in favor of this issue, hoping the November abortion amendment ends up failing. And then on the other side, Democrats are opposed to this, so it's more likely the November abortion amendment does pass. Both sides accuse the other side of shredding the Constitution. Of course, that all depends on how you want to look at it. A little bit farther down, we've got campaign finance, and both sides are taking in big dollars. A lot of it is from out of state or PACs. We've got $15 to $17 million on both sides, so that is huge money at stake, and you could take a look at some additional breakdown in donors here. Again, this Ballotpedia article is extremely thorough. I highly recommend spending 5 or 10 minutes going through some of this, but we'll skip over the polling for now. This shows you the path to the ballot. Again, almost all Republicans in favor, Democrats unanimously opposed. Even farther down, we've got lawsuits, and still farther down, we've got a map here that shows the threshold for voters to approve state constitutional amendments. A lot of them are 50% plus 1, but some of them do have higher thresholds. Now we've got another map for signature distribution requirements for citizen-initiated ballot measures. There's tons of info here. We've got a table down below that shows Ohio in comparison to some other states on these two requirements. And then finally down here at the bottom, we have a history of Ohio ballot measures and constitutional amendments. I'm not going to go over all those, but it's here if you'd like to take a look at it. So that's an overview of Ohio Issue 1. Now let's also switch over to the November abortion amendment. Again, Ballotpedia, they've got you covered. They go completely into depth on this amendment. Now I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but this is a big factor when it comes to the issue of making the Constitution harder to amend. Now this issue is actually likely to pass with over 50% support. If we get on Wikipedia, there's 3 polls here. They're all in the high 50s. So that does mean there's a realistic chance, if issue 1 passes, making it harder to amend the state constitution, that this abortion amendment will narrowly fail. So this is a huge deal for a lot of people. There's passions on both sides. I'm not really here to take a position on the abortion amendment, but I will talk about issue 1 for a moment. There was a recent debate about this issue. You got 2 people on both sides. I did watch the entire debate. You can take a look at it here. Again, there will be a link down below. But let's finish this off on Wikipedia. This has much less information than Ballotpedia, but it's much simpler if you don't want to be inundated. Now, from everything I've heard and everything I've read, it seems like most of the argument in favor of this is since it's a constitutional amendment, it should be much harder to approve than a simple majority. The U.S. Constitution is notoriously difficult to amend, and why should the Ohio Constitution not be modeled after the U.S. Constitution? And the counter-argument I hear is, those are two different constitutions, the states are supposed to govern themselves, and it's been like this for a long time, there's no need to change things up. So that's the gist of how I see this going. Republicans also fear that if you only need 50% to amend the Constitution, then there could be future undesirable amendments that get passed. So I get it, there's a lot here, but I'm going to break this down into the three parts. First of all, the 10-day curing period to fix signatures. That part no one's really talking about, so I'm going to skip over that. Now as for the rest, to gather signatures, currently you have to go to 44 counties, and I do think all 88 counties would be a high bar. What I would say is if you want 60% approval, then you should go to 60% of the counties. That to me seems fair enough. It's a little bit higher bar, but it does not require every county. Now the bulk of this issue, which is raising the threshold from 50% plus 1 to 60%, well, broadly speaking, outside of this issue, when it comes to the Constitution, I do think there should be a higher bar. So I'm not really factoring in the abortion amendment, or how other states do it, or how long Ohio has been doing it. When it comes to the Constitution, I do want to see a higher bar than 50% plus 1. This isn't just passing a law with the state legislator. It is the Constitution. There should be very broad support for whatever's at stake. There's already statewide referendums, there's the state legislator, but any Constitution, I think, should require extra support. You don't necessarily have to go all the way up to the U.S. Constitution, but 60% to me does not seem unreasonable. And to match that with the signature gathering, I could see wanting 60% of the counties, up from 50, but lower than all 88. So this issue has gotten highly politicized. It's an August election with low turnout. We've got some former Republican governors that have come out in opposition to this issue. It's becoming a bigger thing as we get closer to the election, but the last thing I'll point out here is the polling. We've got 3 of them. The farthest one back shows an even split at about 37-38. The one from a few weeks ago shows no in the lead with 57%, and the most recent poll here shows yes with a narrow 1% lead, 42-41, 17% undecided. That's a 650 likely voter sample size. So it seemed like this issue was not going to pass. Given the polarization of today, there's always going to be mischaracterizations, and as voters actually start to pay more and more attention to this, it's tough to say what's going to happen. I do think more people in general would agree that a higher threshold should be required for amending the state constitution, so that part I think would pass. The signature gathering does make that questionable. The November abortion amendment also puts this into question, so it's tough to say what's going to happen. The polling is all over the place. This could fail by 10 or 15%. It could also pass. I would think it would be narrow if it does pass. Who knows what the turnout is going to be, but I think both sides are scared of the outcome. Some of it is justified, some of it I think is of course overblown. So that's most of the background about this issue, and a little bit about the upcoming abortion amendment. I've given you some of my thoughts, but I will leave it there for now. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this issue? Do you think state constitutional amendments should require more than a 50% threshold? Do you think this issue is going to pass? Let me know your thoughts down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.